And over here, we have the leg bone of a woolly mammoth. Ooh. And beside it, the deceased of those who tried to attack it. What the hell is this? Museums. For those of you younger Gen Z, I learned everything from my iPad, kids out there. Museums are a treasure trove of exhibits that showcase history, science, death, art, you name it. Oh, I get it. You want to hear more about the science museums. So, I visited a museum in LA all about the concept of death, and I thought it'd be pretty interesting to talk about in a video. So my friends are disturbed individuals who don't mind a little bit of lifelong trauma with every meal and thought my neutral little life needed some pizzazz. So they brought me along to the Death Museum of Hollywood, California. Now, sit down and get cozy while I talk about my extremely uncomfortable experience that made me want to tear my eyes out. The boys called me one day and told me they wanted to go to this museum. Now, these peeps are probably about as cultured as the Trailer Park Boys, so going to a museum of any kind seemed a little out of character. But I like the idea of museums, so I figured, why not? The outside of the building was menacing. Dark black color and painted skulls everywhere. Pretty much on par with everything Hot Topic wants to be. And also, the museum was surrounded by bars, restaurants, and general office buildings. It's almost comical to me how this place kind of just exists in nature. It's so edgy, you can cut yourself with the edge. It honestly felt like we were getting ready to enter the salty spittoon. How tough are you? As we walked inside, we saw a dimly lit space full of black drapes and lit candles. And at the entrance, I did see a sign that said I could not photograph anything in the museum. So I'll do my best to describe everything in detail. Sorry, guys. Before we entered, the person who sold us the tickets told us to have a blast, and that they encourage fainting. The hell am I walking into right now? Immediately, I was surrounded by portraits of different individuals experiencing their last moments of life. Different scenarios, camera qualities, and grotesque scenery. Already, I knew I was certainly in for a treat as I would continue through this madhouse. The images that really gave me the creeps were the images of victims that took too long to find before they were unrecognizable. I swear I could almost smell these images. Out of all the things I could have expected my trailer park friends to drag me into, it certainly was not this. Every wall, every decoration, every scent in the room just glorified the idea of one's death. Hell, the first room was already enough to terrify me. We were only on the first floor. I was practically holding my breath as we were guided into the next area. What I saw next was visually painful to me. Directly in front of me was the bloodstained and sweaty clothes worn by an inmate who was electrocuted, followed by items used to kill victims, like knives, ropes, and zip ties. Just a big room full of joy. Are you hungry yet? Because we sure were. Taking all of this in, I went through a whirlwind of awkward emotions. Fear, disgust, and curiosity? Sooner than later, I just became numb to it all. Like it was a natural defense mechanism in my mind. This is too much! Too much! We're overwhelmed! Shut it down! Shut it all down! Walking through this hell maze and delivering my mind's secondhand trauma basically turned me into a zombie for the rest of the day. However, looking over at not only my friends, but every other person here, I may have needed to call Homeland Security on some of these people. Even worse than that, I saw parents walking around with their children. What kind of kid would even be interested in this kind of stuff anyways? Like, does Timmy love finger painting and chainsaws? Aside from the people here, I was already curious about something else. How the hell did this place even acquire any of this stuff? Asking a staff member, I quickly got my answer. Apparently, the police, if consented by the next of kin, will start auctioning off pieces of evidence that seemed interesting but ultimately weren't necessary to hold on to. At these auctions, a bunch of true crime investigators, criminal justice students, or iceberg YouTubers come together and bare-knuckle box each other for a chance to own a used sock that was owned by Jack the Ripper. Some items even go for thousands of dollars. Again, people, there's this thing called therapy. You do not need to go this far, I promise. The good news out of all of this is that the money made from these auctions goes to the survivors and or the victims' families. I'm glad that people are happy and find a community out of this, but to me personally, I'm not really feeling the hype for the mementos of someone's tragedy. Maybe I'm the weird one, I don't know. After 2 grueling hours of misery, we finally felt the sunlight on our faces as we exited the museum. What was once an innocent time turned into a corrupted story of self-discovery. I looked over to my friends, who seemed apprehensive and uneasy. We all decided to speed dial our own therapist and call it a day. I'm not even exaggerating when I tell you, for weeks I couldn't get what I saw out of my head. I called all my close friends to talk about it, whether they wanted to listen or not. By the way, I'm sorry guys. Obviously, I wouldn't recommend going to this museum, but there are plenty of cool scientific museums out there. I'd probably stick with art museums, but if the death museum is a you kind of thing, I'm gonna hang out with the iPad kids. You have fun, I guess.